Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're back with part 2 of the 5th video that we did last week, so if you haven't already seen that, the link is on screen now, so watch that one before and then it'll put this one into context. The video continues the pace of the previous video. We change up the chords a little bit using the same idea, and then there's a bonus arpeggiation idea at the end as well. Enjoy the video, and as always, if you have any comments or questions, drop them down in the comment section below. I do get back to everybody, and if you're new here, join the Demis Hellen community. There is plenty of videos going round on trance and various other electronic music production ideas. And I'm just going to show you the thought process that you can go through to actually develop even further. So I'm going to return these to where they were. So we have our straight chord structure. And let's pick how we can change this. So I'm going to change the end and drop that down to D. And suddenly we start to get new things building into there. So let's drop it down to C with maybe a rise into the next note up, and then that rolls into the F nicely. So it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but just keep experimenting until you find the spot that you like. And it is really as simple as just moving around in the locked position that they're in. So we're in C major, and we're going to drop this down to D. So it's keeping that distance and it's staying on white notes. And I'm going to pick D to F, and then let's have A. So now we're creating a chord. So you can see D, F, and A would be a nice triad. Let's have a listen to how that moves. So you can hear straight away, we have a totally different feel, but we've just used exactly the same space notes and in the exact same scale. So let's have a listen to how this last section here that we haven't moved yet ties in, because that drops below D here and would make a nice little loop back into it. That sounds quite nice. I technically wouldn't use it, maybe as a deviation for one bar only somewhere in the track, but I'm going to keep it up here so we have just 3 chords playing. And we're going to do the same again as what we did with the last one. Let's copy this down and down again. So let's see if you've spotted this already. Let me know down in the comments if you've already spotted exactly how I've just built that. We've gone from D to F to A, and we've built our triad, and you can see that that is the triad in the bass because that's the same notes copied. Okay, so now let's have a little chat about building a top melody. How would we go about that? So we're going to do something very similar to what we did last time. We've got D and A, so I'm just going to look at D and A. So it's a little bit higher, I think, and then, yeah, we're down here, so D and A. So we could have an introduction of the third note of that triad, which is the middle note, which would be an F. So we could have that sort of pattern, or we can have sounds quite interesting, so let's have a look at the thought process on that. So we've got this here, and it starts off on the A and drops down to the G. And we're going to repeat that note yet again, just like we did in the first demo. And then the A obviously interrupts that flow, so you'd have the notes crossing over and it'd go out of balance, and it may work, but for this demonstration we're going to drop the A down 1 octave, so it's out of the way, and the bass actually goes up and then drops right down instead of going up to the next note. And then we're going to use that same pattern, A to G. And then we could mimic that, we could double up on the A. This always sounds a little bit better an octave up, so let's just drag everything up. So the A is touching C. And we get an A sharp there, and we don't want that. So we're going to choose A for now. It might sound good on B. Let's have a listen. So it sounds like it needs a half step there. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly what's happened there in my thought process. That's going down to A to keep sort of a relatively same spacing, so we have one white note and then it's the next one. This didn't work because it jumped too far, and that's because we have a half step here, white to white. There is no black note separating these like these two here, B and A. So it had a little bit too much of a jump, and it sounds a little bit more personal having that half step in there. It just gives it a little subtle drop rather than this really big jump. We leave the big jump to the A, dropping right down away from the rest of this whole like chord structure, and this all forms. And these are the ideas that keep going through my head, and this is how I develop it when I'm playing on the keyboard. And finally, how can we adapt this one more time? This can be recycled so many times, it is absolutely unreal. So we've adapted a few different ways of doing it. We've just had them solid chords, and we're kind of playing with this idea of that sort of thing. Everything's all hitting, it's all syncopated, sounds really nice. What about some sort of rocking motion where we just have the two notes that we've played as an F, but we have them going. See what happens. So let's take a look over here. We can see we've got the F and the C as our starting points. So let's have those happening over here, and F and C would sound like this. That's our starting point that we've been familiar with throughout this tutorial. So let's put this here, but what we're going to do is rock this back and forth using eighth notes. Let's copy these over. Okay, so we've got F and D there. I've drawn the wrong one, so F and C is what we want. So we've got the lovely fifth harmony. Okay, so now we have this. We've suddenly got a different idea. So let's just play this on the keyboard again and just play the same rise from F, G, A. So all that's happening there, instead of these being block chords, they are now arpeggiated, I suppose. Just a very simple arpeggiation. I'm going to drag that up, and we're going to drag that up. And then we're going to draw a classic fill-in bass, so all the gaps that are left, I'm going to replace with F, and that is all the notes that are kind of off to the rest of the rhythm. Then we can copy that over and do that on G, and then do that on A, like that. So now we have this. And then we can drag and fill the gaps in of the bass down here, so we can have it doubled up with the F down here. So now this is rocking back and forth, double the pace of this. That's all and well. We've started to build something even more different. I'm just going to get rid of this low note here. There's too much delay on there for this particular sound. So we've got that sound now, and I'm going to drop it down one octave. So now that we have that sound, how can we make that even more interesting? And we can do the same idea as what we did before, have a leading note. So we can have this one start on B. So now it's forcing you to not just hear the notes going back and forth as in. It's forcing you to hear the offbeat notes, because this one changes here. So now you hear the rhythm as more of a. You hear that offbeat rhythm. Whereas if you start on the same area, that's going back and forth, dum 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 dum. But as soon as you change that note to draw your attention to it, you suddenly hear the offbeat manner. And then it goes back into that rocking motion. So let's have the leading note into that, and the leading note into that. sounding pretty nice. And I'm going to have that on the C there. I think that's going to sound better. I'm going to jump. Maybe not. Okay, so there's all different things that we can do. I'm just trying to demonstrate many ways that you can approach this. So now that we have that area, we could develop this one last step. This is touching arpeggiation territory, and we've done plenty of videos on arpeggiated sequences, but we will just have a quick touch on this. So if we just take away everything that's going to distract you and look at this first section here. So this is our F and C chord with the introduction note of using the B to give it a little bit of character. So we're going to take this away. And we've got a very basic idea, but what we could do is drag this across and drag this up. So now we've got the F and the C, the fifth that we've been talking about, but we've got the B, that's the starting note, and that suddenly becomes our arpeggio. So you can hear the character is coming through, and we can just loop that like so. And we can experiment with this. We could even have this an octave higher if we wanted to. So you can hear how things start to develop and deviate from an idea that you've got stuck with. If we loop this section here, so we have 2 bars, we'd be tempted to move this note because this note's already tucked right under this one. We can't really move this anywhere without going downwards, and the melody sounds like it naturally wants to progress upwards. So you'd be naturally thinking and inclined to think, let's move this note to D, for example. And yet that's going to work. But how can we actually make it sound better? Let's transform the B to here. Now it sounds like the B wants to rise, so let's have that on C. So it's now doubling up the original note of the 5th chord. Now we've got something that starts to evolve, and this looks like it's going to be an 8-bar melody, maybe 16 instead of just 4. So let's take this idea and we're going to follow the same pattern. So what was the next chord in the sequence? It was G, and obviously the 5th note was the D. So let's have a listen there. We can see this has changed a little bit. So we've got the B. If we drag these back, just drag this one back down. So really that would be on C to match the same. If we put that back where it was, that's the same pattern, that's the same sort of distance. Let's put them back. So what we want to do here is go from C. We could repeat C and then go into D. Let's just hear how that sounds first. So suddenly you can hear the melodies wanting to go somewhere naturally. You're not trying to force it. You're not trying to think of how did this person make this melody? How did it just flow like that? This is your answer just by using the natural progression of how things move. So let's build the next section. And we're going to move this up to A. And this is going to be our final resting point. We'll do 4 bars of this resting section. So we're going to keep the D on there because that whole kind of carrying across the same tone into the next chord really works for me. And we're going to have that there. And then for the final part, we'll just have this double up on the A. So we've got the bass note doubled up here, and then it's going to drop down to the G for now. And that is the start of a song there. So feel free to use these chords. You can use them at any point. These are not like hidden things that only the professionals know. This is just really basic stuff. And this is where I always touch upon building the basics. Keeping it simple is always going to return the best results. So you can see we had a starting point over here of just having these chords like this in fifths. And then we've moved this on to having an introduction note, identifying B, adds a nice harmony into the sound, to then develop it into various forms, to then build it into an arpeggiated sequence and actually put this an octave higher than where it would have been naturally. and suddenly you've got this trance melody just like poking out at you, and you can hear exactly where it needs to go. You don't have to think about this. And straight away, at the end of here, I could hear that this last 2-bar section should have dropped to somewhere lower. So I'm going to put this on D down here. So we have that kind of loop back in. It tells the listener that everything's going to revert back to the beginning. I'm going to put that on C. I think that's going to sound a little bit more gritty. And this point here, I think, should rise to there because it sounds like it wants to go straight up. And that's keeping the introductory note as well, just one. Maybe 2. Stick to D, that sounds a little bit better. We could possibly do the E, but I don't think that's what I'm looking for there. So there we are, we've built a melody from nothing but starting with this chord, which sounds very basic, and we've just built an entire trance melody. And there we have it. If you enjoyed the tutorial, please let me know down in the comments, and also hit the like button and the subscribe button so you get to see the uploads that are incoming before anybody else. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get that notification. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.